You guys have sent me your current Game Week 1 FPL drafts and I am going to rate them in this video. I've gone through 4 of the most popular ones that have been sent through and one of them is ridiculous. What is this manager doing? So you're going to want to make sure you stick around for that one and make sure you do hit that like button and importantly smash that subscribe button. You absolute legends have got us over 5,000 subscribers already. I massively appreciate you. So without further ado, let's get into this first draft. First up, we have a draft sent through from @Pyrex, thank you so much, which is a current Haaland, Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold draft. Now, while this isn't necessarily the most popular draft in the FPL community right now, it is definitely one that I think a lot of FPL managers want to attain because it has the ownership of the most expensive player in each position, which is Trent, Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. And I know this is definitely a draft that I have tried to play around with, but I haven't been able to actually get the optimal team that I am happy with from a balanced perspective. So what do I like about this team first and foremost? So as I mentioned, you have the ownership of the top pick in each position. And why that's so beneficial is because in the opening game weeks, if Mo Salah, if Trent weren't showing value, you're able to go down to any player in the game because effectively you already own the most expensive one in the game. So let's say a 6.5 million defender goes off, you can easily come down from Trent. On the flip side, those that have gone with a different draft, if you were to try then get the most expensive player, it may require 2 transfers in order for you to get there or lots of money in the bank. So I do like this strategy of having the most money in each position just to downgrade along the way. The other thing I like, the way they've balanced this squad is they've enabled the 8 to 9 million midfielder alongside Mo Salah. Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Odegaard, Son, to name a few, are all fantastic value this season. I really think it's imperative that we have at least one midfield spot allocated to that price range. And in this draft here, they've managed to put in Saka alongside Salah, which is really important because if Saka doesn't necessarily hit the ground running, but Odegaard does, they can easily pivot from one way to the other rather than having Mo Salah all the way down to a 6.5. You can't leave that gap there because it is so difficult to bring up or down your midfielders into that area if you didn't want to sell Mo Salah. So I really like the balance of the midfield in this team. I think they've done a really good job there. Now, what are the downsides of this draft? Well, of course, because we're allocating so much money to 3 specific players, it's over a third of your budget, it's worth noting. You are going to have to make some sacrifices, and that is going to be in the defensive areas. Trent, brilliant defender, and a 5 million in a Stupinan, but then they've had to go for 2 4.5 defenders, and of course, Luton's 4 million Bell. The problem I don't really like is they don't have a 5.5 million defender in this draft. We have so many fantastic options like Luke Shaw, for example. Of course, we have the Chelsea fullbacks if they were to actually become options this year. And because of that very reason, I'm a little bit reluctant to say that this is an optimal draft right now, mainly because of that reason. Now, ways they could work around this. As we look, we could downgrade Ramsdale in goal to a 4.5 and then upgrade one of our defenders up into a 5.5 million defender. That may also need a sacrifice along the way, like Callum Wilson going down to an Nkunku at Chelsea. But then, of course, you are losing that privilege of having an 8 million forward in your team and being able to easily pivot. So this is the slight problem with the team, is being able to also accommodate a 5.5 million defender, as I also think that is quite an important position to own this season. The other problem with this team is no viable 5th midfielder. We know midfield is basically the value of FPL. Only having 4 is a little bit of a problem, especially when you have the 5th that basically is not really going to be any sort of option. We know historically the midfield is where the money's at, where the value's at. Pivoting is going to be difficult in this team. So I really like it. It's probably one of the better ones I've seen from a Trent, Salah, Haaland one. But I personally think there are better ones out there, which we will come on to. But a solid effort here. If I had to rate it, I'd probably say a solid 7.5 out of 10. So let's move on to the next one, which I think I probably do prefer slightly. Now, next up, we have a no Mohamed Salah draft, which has been sent through from Grace. Thank you so much for sending it through. Now, this is probably the one that is definitely the most popular currently in the FPL community. You don't have to put that huge investment into Mo Salah in your midfield, so you do naturally have more cash available in your team to spread elsewhere. As I said, the midfield feels like it is the place where all the value is this season. So first and foremost, what I like about this draft is you get your 5-man midfield. All of these options in midfield here are viable options that you could hold and play each and every game week. Pascal Gross could easily emerge as an option for us this season. We need to see a bit more in pre-season. But if there was money in the bank, you could then look to either upgrade that to a Matoma or even go sideways to an Enciso if he looks to be the better 5.5 million option in that Brighton midfield. What I also do like as well is the budget is spread well across all positions. So not only is the midfield looking stacked, but the forward line is looking good. You have Haaland alongside an 8 million forward, and you also have the defence, importantly, Trent, a 5.5 million defender, in this case Benjamin White, and a 5 million in Estupinan alongside your 4.5 and 4. So I think this is very much more of the template structure that we're seeing from a pricing perspective. And I really do like the way that this team is structured. Now, in terms of the actual FPL draft, I think there's quite a few changes that can be made here that could easily improve it. First and foremost, I think Gabriel is a better option than White. You get to save yourself 0.5 million. And I think Gabriel's minutes look quite secure for now. But of course, pre-season will show a bit more. And simply 5 million for an asset in the Arsenal defence is too hard to ignore. Even someone like Zinchenko is an option. And I also prefer Botman over Dan Burn. Dan Burn had a fantastic season last year, but I don't see anybody displacing Botman. So I think he is just as good an option as Burn, and I'd probably just favour going for Botman. In terms of the goalkeeper department, Steele right now is a slight risk. They have signed a new goalkeeper. It could mean that they are going to be sharing minutes like De Zerbi done last season with Sanchez and Steele. So be cautious of that one. I think someone like a Pickford might be a better 4.5 or a Leno at Fulham. But again, pre-season will hopefully show us some 4.5 million goalkeepers that are going to be real value this season. So I think that is an area that we can consider. And also one that I discussed about Pascal Gross, we need to see the positioning that he undertakes. If he is a number 6 and he plays deep line in this De Zerbi system, he's one to monitor, as I don't think his attacking potential is going to be there. But I do think if he is going to be on penalties, that is a real big part of the game that we need to consider. And he then could emerge as the better value Brighton midfielder. But all in all, I like the picks. I think there's a few tweaks that need to be made in the team from an actual player profile perspective. But in terms of the structure, I prefer this over the first one personally. I think it just gives you that flexibility to have the midfield value and also the spread of funds across the team. But let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one. I'm currently favouring this one. Next up is the Haaland and Kane draft sent through from Noah Hickey. Thank you so much for sending it through. One that I haven't actually dabbled with right now myself. So I'm quite interested to deep dive into this one. Of course, Haaland being at 14, Kane being at 12.5, very difficult for you to squeeze in other premium assets because you're effectively paying big bucks for that forward line. Hard to spread the funds elsewhere in your midfield and the defence. So benefits of this one, you get the two best forwards. We need to remember Harry Kane only finished slightly behind Haaland last season, and we all talked about what a freak season Haaland had. Kane, under a new manager, does he become a better option? Does he become a worse option? Or does he simply stay at Spurs? This will obviously become redundant if he does get that move to Bayern Munich. But at the time of recording, he is a Spurs player, so we need to consider him as an option. And you get the two best forwards in the league. We know that their minutes are going to be guaranteed, especially Harry Kane's, on penalties. And what we do think with Postecoglou's Spurs' team is they're going to be a lot more front foot and a lot more attacking, which could see an uprise in Kane's attacking returns, which is ridiculous to think considering what he done last season. So I really like the investment in the front line because you simply do not have to worry about your forwards in this draft. You just play them week in, week out, knowing that you're likely going to get a return from at least one of those each week. Also like about this team specifically is the player profiling of both Odegaard and Saka. I really think there's an argument this season to simply go for the double up in the Arsenal midfield. Something we haven't touched on in the previous drafts that we've discussed, but Arsenal's fixtures to open the season are fantastic. And the midfielders were really where the value was. Odegaard proving to be a bit of a bully in those bottom half teams, really did step up in those games. And Saka, of course, being on penalties, I still think he is the optimal Arsenal pick. So while we're all getting attracted by Bruno Fernandes, people like that, Son, maybe just going for the Arsenal double up in midfield is the right move because we are expecting such a strong season from Arsenal this year. Now, what don't I like about this draft? Well, first and foremost, I think we all know that Ederson is a bit of a Marmite goalkeeper option. I personally am not a fan of him. 5.5 billion for a goalkeeper that doesn't accumulate saves, doesn't accumulate bonus points, and last season was a little bit leaky and conceded some sloppy goals. I don't think Edison's worth it. I think you either come down to a Ramsdale or even further to a 4.5 like a Pickford or a Leno and free yourself at 1 million in the bank to invest elsewhere, which I think it needs the money. Because, as I said, there's a lack of investment in the team in certain areas, like the midfield outside of those two. Currently, we have Chukwuemeka in the Chelsea midfield, which is not really going to be a playing option. And then we have Eze and Mbeumo. Not really the structure I'm really happy with as a draft. Eze could emerge as a fantastic option once again, but the injury to Elise and the departure of Zaha, I think, is going to affect Eze negatively. And Mbeumo, while a fantastic option, I don't think you have the value spread well across the midfield. So I would like to see one of those, in particular Eze, increased maybe into a 7.5 like a Maddison or a Foden, just to give that depth in the midfield where you know the returns could be yielded. And that could come from downgrading Edison. And as I said, the value is always in midfield. Having no fifth midfielder, I think, is a little bit criminal unless he was to emerge as the 4.5 million gem. I don't think that is going to happen. And last up, Trent has been in all the drafts before, and I understand a lot of managers not wanting to go for him. But what you need to understand is if you don't go without Trent, it's very difficult to put him into your team without an early wildcard. I don't think a lot of managers are going to want to have 2 free transfers to basically squeeze Trent in. I think there's going to be opportunities to take punts elsewhere early in the season when certain bandwagons pick up form. So I think if you go for this draft, you almost accept you're not going with Trent. And I think that's quite a dangerous move to play at the start of the season. In terms of the actual picks that this manager's made, I like Luke Shaw. I would prefer Gabriel over Saliba personally. Reece James, we know the risks, but we know also the upside he offers. So I really like this draft. I like the approach of it. I think a few player profile tweaks could improve it elsewhere. I probably prefer the second draft though, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. It's definitely one that I will template and have a look at in my own personal team. What is this manager doing? As you can see, we have a no Erling Haaland draft sent through from McCann05. I need to DM him to get a bit of an explanation on this one. So, as you can see, I've simply put on the screen no Haaland. There's no pros. The con is no Haaland. And I think we have to understand that Haaland is one of those sort of players right now that is currently 84% owned with fantastic fixtures and playing for one of the best teams in the history of football. He is on penalties, one of the best goal scorers we have seen and broken records last season. And I think going without him is such an incredibly brave move, especially when the alternative isn't even Harry Kane in your teams. So let's kind of rip into this one first, and then I'll try and play devil's advocate and maybe say why the benefits of this team. So first and foremost, if you're going against Erling Haaland, you have to have Harry Kane in your draft. The main reason being is this. First and foremost, he's the only one that comes close to Haaland from an output perspective. So you kind of need to, if you're going against Haaland, put your eggs in a Harry Kane basket. Secondly, Harry Kane gives you the only opportunity to easily pivot to Haaland if he was to go game week 1 hat-trick, game week 2 hat-trick, game week 3 hat-trick, and you finally bit the bullet and said, I need him back in the team. Harry Kane's the only easy route to you because you already have the cash in that forward option. Next up, of course, if you go down this route, you are going to have a lot of money available to play. And what I do like about this draft, and this is the devil's advocate, is look at that midfield. Salah, Odegaard, Saka and Son with Mbeumo as a fifth midfielder. Like, that is a tasty midfield. And as I said, play the game your own way. And I actually kind of love the approach, to be honest with you, going without Haaland, because this could be genius. And it's exciting to play this way. Having that midfield, no one else in the game's having that midfield. Salah, Son, Saka, Odegaard. You can't afford that team if you go for Haaland. And they've got Trent as well in their team. And they've got Reece James. So there is definitely an argument to say what the money does without Haaland creates your team, offers incredible differential upside. Because while some managers will have Odegaard, they will have Son, no one's going to have the combination that this manager has. And if it goes off, then this could be an unbelievable early start to the season. You're either going to be 7 millionth in the world or you're going to be in the top 10k with this sort of draft. It is one of those sort of things. Sanchez in goal, obviously, massive risk that needs to come out. Pickford, someone like a Leno, if you want to stick to that structure, I think it's the route to go for. I like the defence. I probably prefer Shaw over Reece James personally, just for that guaranteed minutes. And James is made of glass right now. I need to see a little bit from Poch and a tricky start to the season. Isak, Very, very unpopular in a lot of drafts, but fantastic option. No arguments with Isak whatsoever. I think he's a brilliant pick. And Nkunku, first appearance of Nkunku in a draft. I really do think Nkunku is going to be a good option this season. I personally don't like to invest in new players into the league in the early start of the season. However, if you are going without Haaland, clearly this manager is a bit of a maverick. And I totally understand the appeal that Nkunku offers. I think he is one of those players that could have a massive ceiling this year. And if you want to go down that route, then there's no arguments from me whatsoever. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. This one is obviously very controversial. But I do really like the Maverick move. And the midfield here is outrageous. I personally just wouldn't go for it myself. Okay guys, that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you've enjoyed checking out some popular drafts that we have in the community and my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and importantly, let me know your drafts in the comments. I'll be really interested to know what direction you're going with your structure, where you're allocating your money, and if you do want to have your team rated, head over to the links in my bio, head over to the Discord channel, send them over, and I will try and rate them over the preseason period. You guys are legends. You've got us over 5,000 subscribers. That was the goal before game week 1. If we can get to 6k subscribers before game week 1, I know that you guys are the best in the community. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you can, like and subscribe, absolute heroes, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.